You know that feeling when everyone around you is scrambling, moving fast, filling every hour with motion, and you're just sitting there, watching, not doing anything yet. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a quiet voice starts asking if something is wrong with you. Maybe you've noticed it your whole life. While others jumped straight into a task, you paused. While others said yes immediately, you needed a moment. While others treated busyness like proof of worth, you treated stillness like something worth protecting. And somewhere along the way, someone probably gave that stillness a name. Lazy. Unmotivated. Not a self-starter. But here's what's strange. If you actually watch these people closely, the ones who get called lazy, you'll notice something that doesn't fit the label at all. They're not avoiding effort. They're avoiding wasted effort. There's a difference, and most people never learn to see it. This is one of those traits that gets misread constantly, mostly because our culture equates motion with value. If you're moving, you're working. If you're working, you're worthy. So anyone who pauses before acting gets quietly filed under unmotivated, even when the pause is doing something important. What if the pause isn't the absence of effort, but the presence of a different kind of effort? One that happens before the visible part even starts. That's what we're going to look at today. Not laziness as a character flaw, but as something psychologists and behavioral researchers have started describing very differently, a marker of high-level strategic cognition. The kind of thinking that filters, evaluates, and conserves energy for what actually matters, instead of spending it on everything that simply looks like productivity. There's a body of research in cognitive psychology around something called effort-based decision-making. It looks at how the brain calculates whether an action is worth the energy it costs, before the action ever happens. Researchers at institutions studying this, including work coming out of behavioral economics labs, have found that people who appear to delay or resist tasks are often running an internal cost-benefit analysis so fast they don't even notice they're doing it. Their brain is asking a simple question underneath the surface. Is this task actually going to move something forward, or is it just going to feel like productivity? That question matters more than it sounds like it should, because a huge amount of what passes for hard work in daily life is what researchers sometimes call performative effort. Effort that exists to be seen, not to produce results. People who instinctively resist that kind of effort aren't broken. Their internal system is functioning exactly as it should. It's filtering out noise before the noise ever reaches their hands. Now here's where it gets interesting, because this pattern rarely comes from nowhere. It tends to be shaped early, often in environments where energy had to be managed carefully. Maybe there wasn't much room for wasted motion growing up. Maybe effort that didn't produce a clear result wasn't rewarded, or worse, wasn't even noticed. In households like that, a child learns something important without ever being taught it directly. Effort is a resource, not an obligation. Spend it where it counts. Over time, that lesson gets wired into the nervous system. It stops being a conscious decision and becomes something closer to instinct. The body starts to resist tasks that don't feel meaningful, almost like a built-in filter switches on before the mind even explains why. This isn't defiance. It's adaptation. A nervous system that learned early to conserve what it has, because at some point, conserving it mattered. It's worth pausing here to say clearly that none of this makes one way of operating better than another. There are people who move fast, act first, and figure things out along the way, and that approach works beautifully for them. There are people who pause, evaluate, and act only once they see the shape of the outcome, and that works too. Neither one is the correct way to move through the world. They are just different systems, shaped by different histories, solving the same problem of how to spend limited energy in an unlimited world of demands. The trouble only starts when one of those systems gets treated as the default and the other gets treated as a defect. Here's the layer most people miss entirely, though. This kind of selective effort often comes with something that looks like a contradiction at first. The same person who resists busy work, who seems to drag their feet on tasks that don't matter, will often move with startling speed and intensity the moment something does matter. Ask them to fill out a form nobody will read, and they'll stall for days. Give them a problem that actually requires thought, and they'll disappear into it for hours without needing a single reminder. That's the paradox. It isn't inconsistent motivation. It's a highly selective one. The energy was never missing. It was being rationed, waiting for a target worth spending it on. There's a quiet cost to living this way, though, and it deserves to be named honestly. People who operate like this often get overlooked in environments that reward visible effort over actual results. They can look uninterested in rooms where everyone else is performing engagement. They can be misjudged by people who never bother to look past the surface. And because the internal filtering happens automatically, without a conscious explanation attached to it, it can be hard for them to even defend themselves in the moment. They just know something in them refuses to move, and they don't always have the words for why. But that refusal isn't a weakness. It's a form of discernment that most people never develop, because most people never had to. If any of this sounds familiar, it's worth sitting with for a second instead of rushing past it. This isn't a diagnosis, and it isn't a flaw to correct. It's a way of thinking that prioritizes meaning over motion, and in a world that rarely slows down long enough to ask what actually matters, that's not a small thing. You were never behind. You were never unmotivated. You were, in your own quiet way, protecting something valuable long before you had a name for it. And if this is starting to feel familiar, there's more here worth understanding about the way your mind quietly decides what deserves your energy and what doesn't.